Tonight on Chim Africa, my guest is Tunde Ojo, CEO of Touchstone Ltd in Nigeria. He talks about his journey as an apostle in the marketplace. Tonight on Chim Africa. Please like this video and leave a comment below. Let's know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button and share this video with somebody else.
From Cape Town to Cairo and from Mogadishu to Dakar, this is Chim's Talk Africa. And now here's your host, Chim Onyibilanma.
Hi there, welcome to this segment of your show. Like I told you in my introduction, my guest today is Tunde Ojo. He's the CEO of Touchstone Ltd, a branding and communication company here in Nigeria, and who have been in this whole field for decades. Tunde, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure, and you also a pastor in the ministry.
That's right.
Tunde,
thank you.
What I love about you is the quiet, consistent way you've been in the industry. You're not a noisemaker, and you've just delivered over and over all these years consistently. But let's go back to your formative years. Growing up wasn't always very easy. In fact, you mentioned an incident when you were a very, very little boy that marred your life or affected your life or shaped your life. Tell us a little bit about the separation of your parents when you were young.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks for your generous comments on the little we were able to do by the grace of God here and there. I was brought up. I come from a very humble background, and I tell people, you call your background humble when you don't want to query why your parents were not rich when you were very, very young. You didn't want to put the blame on them, so you say it's humble. But one of the greatest, very, very strong impressions on my very early life was the separation of my mom and my dad. My father was stoic, was a good man. My mother too, but they just couldn't get, they're married together. And one of the earliest memories of my childhood that I wish would be gone was a day when my father asked for my custody in court. And I must have been around circa 7, I can't remember, around 6 or 7. Okay. And I felt the pain because I can't remember the court proceeding, but I remember both of them struggling after the court proceeding, pulling me in between them. Physically. Physically. And, when parents get separated, the collateral damage on the children could be very heavy. And one day I just made up my mind. I said, look, I wasn't the one who gave this woman to this man. I wasn't there, and I was not the cause of that problem. So from that day on, I started living my life. And I said, look, I wouldn't bear the burden of, this separation.
What kind of decision did you make about marriage, watching that play out between your father and mother? You never experienced
I say this with a lot of emotion, not just in my life, but for others who might be having, a troubled marriage, that it's not good. Never again.
You made up your mind that you're going to have a good marriage?
Oh, yes. And
how long have you been married now?
This year, it's amazing. This year is going to be 36 years.
36?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
And that has been something that has fueled your building of your
own
home.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Keeping it together. Let's talk about you meeting the Lord Jesus. You mentioned that was before you met the Lord. When did you meet the Lord, and how did that happen?
Now, in my secondary school, a friend shared the gospel with me. And it was very strange, because, I grew up at the height of disco. Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta, the Motown stars, and I just couldn't imagine, there will be opportunity for disco, and then you'll be out of. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, this was a completely strange life, so I didn't quite understand it, But when I then went to my higher school in Olivet Heights, Oyo, that's where I did it. A preacher came to town. It was a chapel event. A preacher came to town, and he was preaching with a lot of passion. And I was well known. He was quite popular in school. And the preacher was sweating, and I said, look, when it was time for altar call, like we call it, as Christians, nobody was coming out. I said, this man must be rewarded. I mean, it was too much. I felt very sorry for them. So I just walked up to, and because I didn't check my bag, but I was sufficiently popular. There's a lot of other people must have followed me. So out of compassion was when and then they were trying to follow me. A dear sister, she risked so much because she was saying, are you born again? I said, well, yeah, what else, But months later, on July 6th, because she gave me the daily bread, I think it's July 6th, I got to understand, I was in my room, and I got to understand what it means to be born again. I committed my heart to Jesus Christ. The very first Christian gathering that I went to was on child evangelism. Again, my old friend, then became my discipler. And when it was time to come out for salvation, the Spirit of God said, you've done that. You don't need to make another decision. So that's my story. And, from there, that has shaped, growing up in the university, we had the great privilege of being, mentored by Barrister Emeka Nwangpa, and, all the good people. And I remember in 1982, I made a decision under his ministration. The late S.G. Elton was also alive. It was at the
Which university was this?
He went to the University of Lagos, but the meeting was at the Polytechnic Ibadan. And he called us to make a decision, a quality decision, no speaking in tongues. It's a decision you are going to remember. You ask God for who He will want you to get married to, what part of the country, outside the country you like to live in, as directed by God. So I made that quality decision. So when my heart started telling me, this is the woman, different from my culture, and I knew there would be a problem at home, but I said, God, I had made a previous decision to do your will.
So and your preference. With your wife together, both of you decided to start Touchstone, what we have today as Touchstone Ltd.
Yes.
Where did that idea come from?
If I'm an entrepreneur today, I would say I suck it from my mother's breast.
Because most people would like to get a stable job where you are getting.
I had a good job.
Yeah, I know. Most people would like to stay in that stable job where you were in instead of venturing out.
But I saw my mother as a trader, if you like trader, and you call an entrepreneur. My father also, and my siblings, one form or the other. So it wasn't a question of not being well paid. It's a question of what are you supposed to be doing. Wow. I felt a call to the marketplace as a witness rather than, because I didn't have anything when I left. I only have 50 naira that I contribute, 50,000 that I contributed to the pension scheme. And I took nothing outside of employment more than that. But the conviction was very strong that you are meant for entrepreneurship and not just, but that was after I'd spent I worked in 2 big advertising agencies and 2 big banks. And when I told my chairman of the last bank where I worked, he just couldn't believe it. And I remember what he told me. He said, Tunde, you are the best judge of your own destiny. If you feel this is it. And he was also a great entrepreneur. Okay. So I felt I also caught the bug from him. And he will always tell us how he started the first indigenous investment bank in Nigeria. I'm talking of, my chairman, my great boss, Otumba Michael Olashubomi Balogun, a great entrepreneur. So it's very difficult to work with him because I work directly with him. I ran the corporate affairs of the bank for over 3 years. Very difficult to work with him without knowing the value of entrepreneurship. So my wife and I registered the company in 1993, October. So that will make it 30 years now. Yeah. But we were wondering, should I leave? She was a teacher, and should I leave immediately? So I started what you would call moonlighting at weekends. Got 2 guys, work. And then there was a friend of mine, which I'm going to tell you as I hope we have the opportunity of them. So started moonlighting. Who started business, who want me to come over? And I said, I told him there's a feeling for me to entrepreneurship rather than taking an additional job. So 1996, I resigned, and we started Touchstone fully in 1997. And it's been quite a journey.
It's been a journey, and it's been, you've made your mark. When you look back over this almost 30 years, you've done so many campaigns for big banks, for corporations. Tell me some of the campaigns that stand out in your mind.
When the banks were recapitalizing, when the central bank said the banks were recapitalizing, because a whole lot of our brands, because of my experience, having worked in 2 big advertising agencies and 2 big banks, 2 investment banks, we felt forte, the niche that we should cut, essentially, was to sell the invisible, that is selling services, which is a little more difficult than selling physical products. Yeah. So we had an opportunity of pitching the First Bank job. First Bank wanted to raise 100 billion.
First Bank is one of the foremost banks in Nigeria.
In Nigeria. First Bank, very, it's a behemoth, it's a big bank by every definition. Yes. That shareholders value it, by the definition. So they wanted to raise 100 billion, and we pitched for it. Before them, we were not working for them. And it was very exciting because in our strategy, in our war room, we said to ourselves, this is the largest offer on the exchange. Then, the African elephant is the biggest mammal on the surface of the earth. First Bank, then, and I think, I don't know where they stand now, the biggest bank. So we evolved a strategy of a big idea called the big one. The big one. The big one. Okay. Yes. So how will we bring this to life? And because we felt the bank is the oldest in Nigeria and perhaps even in West Africa. And what would be the best way to open this offer, which was judged that it could fail? So we then said to ourselves, let's bring a live elephant to walk the street of Lagos in First Bank. And when we made a presentation, the bank just went, can you guys bring it? How we got a live elephant to walk the streets of Lagos is another story entirely. I won't want to, but we opened the offer with a live elephant walking the street of Lagos.
Just going around.
And elephants are known to be very dangerous, yes, and very, very damaging. Will not like noise, but I think we were helped by God. Now, the success of that, because we're the consultant to the offer, the success of that was that we raised close to 500 billion.
Wow.
Yes, for First Bank, that the bank had to return people's money. Now, that was an exciting time. And we have First Bank to thank for the opportunity of being a part of that. And then one more one, and then there are others. But I mean, Intercontinental, for example, now Access Bank. From the time 4 banks fused together to become Intercontinental Bank during the recapitalization, we worked on the Happy Customer, Happy Bank campaign, Happy Bank, throughout. And we did something that was innovative then in Nigeria. We call it sonic branding, using sound to sell across platforms.
How does that work?
What we did was that we called a musicologist and then who worked with us based on research to define a particular tone of music and its variants, you know, the jazz version, the pop version, instrumental, and all of that. And we then apply it across. Then digitalization was not as good as we have it now. We wired all the branches that anytime anybody enter any branch will be welcomed by the music. You put on the, you wanted to work on the ATM, you put on your card, is the sound that we have. And there are various events in different forms. So it became, something that was subliminal and it was very successful. We worked with the bank from the time the 4 banks joined together till the time they were sold or they merged, depending on where you are standing with Access Bank. That was an exciting time. It was quite exciting.
As a man of conviction, a follower of Christ, how have you navigated the place of corruption in the marketplace? Without everybody knows that this is most of our cultures, you face this. So have you had to face this challenge?
I have not. No, I'm only kidding. I'm kidding. How do you do business? How do you do business? You will have welcomed me to the earth. How do you do business in Nigeria without having to deal with the hydra-headed problem of corruption? But what helped us was the foundation of the company. We said this company is going to be established to honor the Lord and to make a difference with integrity. We're going to be as creative, we're going to be as strategic as possible. We're going to work pretty hard, but we're going to keep integrity, the Christian integrity. So we work with our partners, our team members, to say this is a company that in principles and practice will live by Christian values. And we all agreed. Anybody that we wanted to hire, whether you're a Muslim or whatever it is that you believe or a free thinker, you will have to go through this process and then agree whether you could be on board or not. How did that happen? We had, apart from our vision, our values, which we worked with. It was difficult, was the 3 I's and the E, all right? Integrity, intelligence, industry, that is hard work, and the excellence. Now, this challenged us greatly because we lost a lot of opportunities because we would not be able to do things in the Nigerian way. In fact, my colleagues will say, don't let Tunde Ojo hear if a potential client will be asking for a bribe or not. I must say this to the glory of God. All those projects that I spoke to you about, they were done without having to give inducement or bribe or anything. It was very difficult. But we felt, what difference will Christ make in our lives as business people if we have to do it the way others are doing it? And we also believe that we've grown up to know that gain is not godliness. Nobody's going to go to heaven and they ask, what's your net worth? How much did you make? How many houses did you build? What part of town do you live? Those are not the very, but gain is not godliness. But godliness, with contentment is great name. For we brought nothing to this world, and it's certain. Nobody's going to, we're not just going to die poor. We're going to die broke. In fact, we are going to die with nothing. So we had, sometimes we will ask, is this process, is it transparent before we pitch? And they would tell us, sometimes they will have to ask. If it's not transparent, if you find somebody to give it to, you can allow it. But once we know that it's a transparent process, we will work like very hard.
bring in your other value.
Yes, because we know that we don't have any other appeal outside of hard work and God's grace.
And excellent.
Yeah, excellent. We don't have any other thing to offer.
We've got to round up here somewhere, but I've just enjoyed our conversation. Let's talk about home. How do you juggle everything together? Pastoring, married man, father, all of that. What's the secret? What have you learned about balance?
Thank you. The word for it is balance. For starters, I love to work. I'm a creature of work. I like to work. I believe that the Bible opens with a God who works. His son, Jesus Christ, said, so I love to work. So work is very, very important. But home, I'm privileged to have been raised in a church that believes in balance. The Foursquare Gospel Church, where I had the privilege of serving over the years. And the order is very clear. God comes first, all right? Next is your home. Then next is your work. In fact, the church is last, so that you don't end up becoming a religious freak. And so when you have that as priority, that your relationship with God is the foundation on which you build your home, or you build your work, and then your service in church, that has helped me a lot. And I never knew I would be called into the pastoral ministry. I just felt, let's go and help the pastors to carry their Bible and, just be good people.
Yeah.
While assisting them, I remember one of the stories, and they have tea, they have biscuits and all of that. So the secretary said, Tunde, wouldn't you like to take out of it? I said, are these things for pastors? She said yes. I said, no. I don't touch pastors' things. I don't want an angel to say, you don't chop their food. You have eaten their food. But, when God is calling, there is nothing, your life won't be meaningful. So I'm bivocational, sent to the marketplace and also the mission field. Maintaining a balance has been by God's grace and by having a good and committed wife.
Being your bedrock.
Oh yes, she's like I told you. Apart from my salvation, that is one decision, the best decision that I've made. Thank you.
Today we have to round up here. Would you look into the camera and give us your last word? What would you say to our viewers?
I like to say this. We live in a very pluralistic religious society. Some scholars will say this is post-Christian, post-modern, post-everything. But the truth of the matter is that, just like I had the privilege of speaking at a tech company, that digitization has taken over the world. The world is moving at a dizzying pace, but the state of the heart of man has not changed. And now what changes that sufficiently, fully, wholly, is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it will affect your life, your personal life, affect the way you work, the way you see your other human beings. And it's founded in the Judeo-Christian ideal of, Deuteronomy calls it the Shema, Deuteronomy 6, thou shalt love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might, and with everything. And Jesus echoed that by saying, the second one is like unto it in Matthew, your neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you so much, Tunde. I've been talking to Tunde Ojo, the CEO of Touchstone Ltd, a branding and communication firm here in Nigeria. Tunde, thank you so much for
It's a pleasure.
opening up your life to us and sharing with us. We've pulled out so many lessons from it, and I'm sure our viewers have been blessed too. This is where we would knock off. Thank you, Tunde.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Please Please like this video and leave a comment below. Let's know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell button and share this video with somebody else.